ও বাবা! প্রিন্সিপাল চিঠি লিখেছে।
Can someone kindly confirm if I am audible and if you can see me?
Right, a very good afternoon to everyone. We're getting started with our special lecture today on step-by-step approach to project work. We know project work is a very important part of the semester 6 curriculum for the BCom course and under University of Calcutta. And we hope that today's session will be a very enriching one. We have with us a very erudite and a very eminent teacher from our fraternity, Dr. Soheli Ghose. She's been my teacher, and someone we all have been very inspired from. And I hope students will find today's session. You'll understand the rudimentary aspects of what is a project, how to go about it, and feel free to post any questions you have. Okay, Dr. Rani Shah, she's in charge of the Department of Commerce evening. Ma'am, a few words.
Nothing to say as much. I know Gurleen will give a good introduction of but Shikshayatan is indeed, is very helpful book and will be asking all relevant questions which are necessary for doing the project work which carries 100 marks. So I know Dr. Ghosh will always in every aspect, she always helped us. So for you, better listen to her. Gurleen, I will just hand over some few words about ma'am. Just tell me. Okay. Thank you.
Yes. Gurleen and now the students will take over the proceedings. Gurleen.
Thank you, ma'am. Good afternoon, ma'am. Uh, Dr. Soheli Ghose is the Dean of the Department of Commerce Evening, Assistant Professor in the Department of Commerce Morning, and is also the coordinator of the NET SET Guidance Center of St. Xavier's College, Autonomous, Kolkata. She is also a guest lecturer at the University of Calcutta. She has been awarded PhD in Commerce Finance by the University of Calcutta and at present is registered as a PhD supervisor in commerce at St. Xavier's College, Kolkata. She has over a decade of experience in teaching undergraduate and postgraduate students in accounting and finance discipline. She has written books focusing mostly on Indian financial markets, has published over 50 scholarly research papers in numerous peer-reviewed and referred international and national journals, and presented numerous papers at international and national conferences. She has many a contribution in the form of chapters in book com- compilations. Ma'am has numerous laurels to her name, such as Outstanding Professor in Accounting and Finance at the National Leadership Awards, Excellence in Management Research Award, Indo-Asian Best Women Finance Award, Dr. Sarvapalli Radhakrishnan Research Fellowship Award, to name a few. We celebrated International Women's Day yesterday, and it is an honor that we have a session with you, ma'am, today. Warm welcome to you, Dr. Ghosh, and thank you. I request you to address the students.
Thank you so much. At the outset, I would like to thank Dr. Indrani Shaha and the entire team of the Shri Shikshayatan College for giving me this opportunity. I also thank Professor Kavita, who has been a an excellent student of mine, and I always say it's extremely proud moment for me to see her, you know, shoulder to shoulder and doing so well. So thank you, ma'am. Thank you, Gurleen, for the lovely introduction. And with the permission of the authorities, if you allow, I'll begin the session. And ma'am, I'm going to
Yes.
share a few samples of questionnaire also with the students so that they know how to write questionnaires and prepare questionnaires. So along with the, later on when I send the entire set of Word document of everything that we are doing today, I will send the links also so that they're not dependent only on books for questionnaires. They know the free websites from where they can design templates and also which will help them in future in creating questionnaires. So with this, I begin. I intend to keep the last 10 minutes for a question answer session, if that is okay with everyone. And you're free, you can feel free to ask any question at any point of time whenever it is required. So at the very beginning,
Absolutely.
uh,
Thank you.
thank you so much.
This is
So
a live
at the
chat
very,
on YouTube, and
okay,
one
ma'am.
of the student representatives will read it out to you, or they'll probably, if they'll not interrupt, they'll try to bring it up as and when, if you, whenever
Right,
you
right,
feel that there's a question, you can just stop and ask them to read them out.
right, right, right. Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you. So I will present after a while. First, I want to give an introduction as to what is project work and why is it relevant. See, at the very outset, we all know project work is a very important aspect of your bachelor's degree. Now, we all run after project work for those 100 marks, but remember, this is the initial step for you to take up research in future. For many of you who will be taking up MCOM or Masters or MBA or anything, this is one way of going in the right direction for your project work, and this is an orientation towards research. So before I continue, I would like to give you a brief structure of what project work should have. Now, if anyone is willing to write, you can write it down. I will anyways be sending this set of Word documents over to you, over to Indrani ma'am. And along with that, as I mentioned already, the links from where you can take free templates of questionnaires, those will also be given. But before I move on to questionnaires and types of topics and types of research, you need to know a few very specific steps of actually writing a research project. So if you want to begin with that, if you I remember once giving this lecture in the previous one of the sessions, an offline session in Shikshayatan itself, that there are few steps that you need to follow for an undergraduate project work. So the first step is to find out an area which you like. Now here, with the initial discussion which I had with Dr. Shaha, many of the time students get confused as to selecting the area of research, because we have an orientation very limited to either finance or to marketing, or maybe at times a little bit of a blend of marketing and finance. But then, with the interdisciplinary approach coming in, CBCS curriculum, and of course in a few years you will have the national education policy, and whereby a 4-year undergraduate program may also be introduced. So you need to remember one thing very particularly: when you are choosing the topic of your research, choose an area which you like, and where the availability of data, either primary or secondary, is reasonably easy. Because remember, this is an undergraduate project. You will have a limited span of time to complete this project. So, thereby, the first step in trying to understand what your research project topic should always be on the area that you want to choose. So I'm going to discuss few areas, few relevant areas. First, I will discuss few areas of finance. Then I will discuss few areas of management, and then I will discuss some interdisciplinary areas. And then I will move on to the next step of the project. So to begin with, once again, we are moving into the process of designing or creating a project work. So before that, the first step that you need is to create an idea, or have an idea, share an idea, and see something which is relevant to you, and also, most importantly, which is practical. Because many a times we are over ambitious, whereby we want to cover a large area which may not be very practical given the constraints of time and, of course, the other chapters and other subjects of your syllabus. So here I'm going to discuss about few very new, relevant, and I would say interesting topics of the project. So as I said, step one would be to choose an area and decide a topic. So in finance area, the common topics that we have seen over the years: doing a balance sheet analysis of companies, which everyone is very aware of; doing an analysis on mutual funds, on NPA, on the recent trend is on cryptocurrency, bank mergers. These are very common topics. But then, if we talk about some interesting topics of finance, where data is either easily available on the websites, or you can find out the data through a primary survey using a questionnaire. So some of the new and interesting areas in finance, then I will talk about management and then interdisciplinary. Some of the new areas of finance can be, for example, a discussion on Basel IV norms. Basel IV, or Basel IV as some of you may say, the data is very easily available on the RBI website or the World Bank website. So you can see what is a timeline of the application of Basel IV or Basel IV on various banks. You can take up an example of a bank, and you can actually see whether the application of Basel III and thereby Basel IV norms are affecting the banks or not. Interesting topic, new age topic, and very easy to find data relevant to it. This would be completely based on secondary data, so thereby the requirement of questionnaire may not arise in this situation. Another very interesting area which is coming up in finance, which is kind of an interdisciplinary approach, is cloud computing or artificial intelligence, or computing along with finance. So many of the conferences which are coming up are talking about this. Many research projects are happening on this, as to how is computerized system. It can be artificial intelligence, it can be simply a computerized system like Tally, it can simply be an automated version of taking out results, which is helping in the accountancy profession. Here also, gathering data is very simple. You can go to the website of various companies, they will have details of how automation, to what extent they're using automation. Now, this automation is not only restricted to companies. It can be for schools, it can be for institutions, it can be for panchayat system, it can be for cooperative societies, it can even be for your own business. Many a times I tell my students who are there in St. Xavier's in the BCom evening, and even in the postgraduate classes, that if you already have a family business, or you know someone who has a business, then you can easily think of getting some data from there and analyzing it on your own. For example, you have a shop. There you have started using an automated system of be it accounting or recording. Whether that has helped in your overall profitability or ease of work, or whether this is just an additional cost, you can do an analysis there. You will be able to get the data very easily. Here you will have to prepare a questionnaire. We will go on to a questionnaire in just a minute, where I'll be sharing my screen. And then when we talk about automation in the overall system of finance and accounting, you will be able to get a generic idea. Now, based on this, there are many other topics of finance which you can take up, but most of the finance topics may be based either on secondary data or a blend of secondary and primary data. One common mistake which I have seen students making, that they choose an area. They say that they are going to do a topic on mutual funds. Mutual funds is a large area. You have to select a topic. So in accounting and finance, when you are selecting a topic, you need to specify the overall structure. You cannot just mention the area. For example, if you are choosing something on, say, NPA analysis, you cannot simply say that you're only going to do non-performing assets analysis. You can say that you're going to choose private and public bank, and you can make a comparison. You can run t-tests, ANOVA, chi-square, other tests. You can say that you're only going to take one company or one bank, and thereby you're going to do a detailed analysis of maybe over 10 years as to how NPAs have increased or decreased. You can take mergers of various banks and take an example of whether post the merger the NPS scenario has improved or not, and so on and so forth. So when you are choosing an area cannot be the topic. The topic has to be more specific and more structured, and that needs to be discussed in details. Now, let me give you some examples of management or marketing related areas. So, and once we finish that, we will be moving on to preparing a questionnaire and then some other nitty gritties of project work. So, when we talk about marketing or management related areas, the advantage is you can create your own survey, you can do your own survey and get primary data. The advantage of primary data again is, most of the times if you have enough data, it tends to be normal. So the regular tests which you have learned in statistics, the normal parametric tests will work. However, the secondary data at times may have some kind of like heteroscedasticity or panel data or time series data, which may create problems in future. But then for primary survey and primary survey related data, this problem can be avoided at the very beginning. So some areas of, and then some specific topics of primary data. So for example, if you are thinking of management and marketing, these are all perpetual studies. In this next year and this year and probably another year, you have a huge advantage of an event called COVID. Advantage in the sense you can do a lot of pre and post analysis. Pre-COVID, what was the perception? Post-COVID, what was the perception? Remember, this will be able to you will be able to apply this even in your secondary survey related data, even in finance, even in interdisciplinary approach. But whenever it comes to management and marketing related topics, the pre and post COVID, this analysis allows a huge scope. What kind of scope? uh, for example, if I say, number one, if I take an example of the number of online purchases, a very popular topic amongst project students, the number of online purchases you have made pre and post COVID. Now, this can be segregated into many areas. It can be groceries, it can be generic, say, fashion merchandise, it can be medicines, it can be day-to-day items. It can be any item which you think, and accordingly you can prepare a survey or a questionnaire set. So whenever you are thinking of a pre-post-COVID or a generic survey of consumers' perception or usage of technology and usage of various kinds of automated designs and digitalization, you can think of a vast area and a large number of questions. So some of the questions which, or rather some of the topics which I can think of is the usage of OTT platforms. How much is the usage of Netflix or Amazon Prime and similar other things pre and post COVID? Then content based, if we are talking about OTT, content based approach. Why do you like a particular platform? Why do you like a particular area, genre of choice? Then you can think about, if again we are talking about digitalization, the usage of wallets. How much of usage of wallets have either increased or decreased or remained the same pre and post COVID? The gender who are using wallets more, the generation who are using the wallets more. For example, you may have the older generation, senior citizens who are not still very comfortable using wallets and online payment system, whereas our present generation, me, you, and your generation, we are very apt in using wallets. Then security relating to utilization or usage of these wallets or online payment system. Then there is another way, another area or another structured area to look into, whether there has been an increase in ordering of food, ordering of fashion merchandise, ordering of medicines, ordering of groceries, ordering of daily essentials through an online mode over the last few years. So why is it increasing? Is it because of discount? Is it because of convenience? Is it because of availability? Is it because of time saving approach? So these can be various items which you can think of, or areas or topics or subtopics which you can think of when you are starting with your research work. Then there are some interdisciplinary work, very, very popular over the last few years. Interdisciplinary is a generic structure. So if I say, if I think I'll be able to write in the chat. So the first step which is to be considered is select an area where the most important point of the area is to see that data is available. You should not choose, for example, if you choose a survey of rural India, it's difficult for you to get data from there. Then from that area, you choose a topic. The topic should be very specific and structured. Specific and structured topics. Now, why am I saying structured? Because if you do too much of literature survey, which you are already aware that you will have to do literature survey and everything when you are starting off with your overall topic. If you do too much of survey, you are going to get confused. So you need something which has to be within your scope or your area. Now, once you decide on the topic, there can be various topics in the interdisciplinary approach as well. Interdisciplinary approach can be green accounting. Then you can think of carbon footsteps or carbon footprint. It's a very common topic nowadays. And so you can include these topics along with your generic nature, either management or finance and even economics, and can think of certain interrelated or interdisciplinary approach of topics. So first step, as I said, is area determination, selection of topic. The second step, and an extremely important part here, is literature review. Now, literature review, I will give you some pointers on literature review. Many of us simply type in Google and find out scholarly articles relating to. In the search, please be more specific. Be specific in your search for the area. When you're searching for the area, then take good journals. There are many open access journals, but then if you take some good journals, if your library has the option, if some of the library may even have some journals which they are taking regularly, and thereby once you have these in your accessible area, think of the similar points. So there are various types in which you can design your literature review. You can design it in a thematic way, you can design it in a chronological way, but for your undergraduate purpose, I would say the chronological or the thematic approach is more, I would say, easy. So chronological or thematic approach to literature review. Now I will move on to the most important part of today's session, which is the questionnaire designing and questionnaire setup. So before I begin, I just want to know in general whether anyone in your uh, class or in general, have you designed questionnaires before? You can mention in the chat so that I can see it as well. I can see the chat here. So is there anyone who has already designed or has any idea about questionnaires? If no, then I will go in a very detailed manner, because questionnaire designing is, I feel, the most relevant part of your entire project work if you're working with primary data. Okay, I will at least begin. So I'm about to present my entire screen. Just give me a minute. I'm trying to present my screen. I'm moving on to the survey and sample questionnaire templates. You can see this is type form, and as I had mentioned, you can actually log into this website free, and you can actually design your own questionnaires from their sample. Now, before I do, any one of you kindly mention whether this is changes forms, because I'm sure this will be showing in my screen. So if anyone can kindly mention. Can someone mention here if you can see the screen? I've gone back to my own screen. Anyways, I'll continue. So I was discussing the concept of survey, questionnaire, and templates. Now, those who are writing down or anything, please note down the questionnaire should have the minimum following requirements when you are thinking of designing a questionnaire. The demographic requirements. Always try and design, it is considered better and safe to design the questionnaire for age groups of 18 and above. So, if you consider a generic structure of questionnaire, you can have the concept of quizzes, you can have the concept of forms, you can have concept of, I'm scrolling up a little, you can have concept of various types of surveys. So at the very beginning, if I say that you need to have a demographic pattern which is considered in your generic structure, 18 and above. So you can have the most common I would say gap or categorization or range for demographic is 18 to 25, 26 to 35, 36 to 45, and so on and so forth. But this will depend completely on your type of survey and the type of questions you are planning to design. So here you can have feedback forms, you can have satisfaction surveys, you can have feedback surveys, you can have request forms, you can have anything which you need. So there are many different kinds of demographic questions which you may ask. Demographic questions like, for example, what is age group is done, what is your annual income? At many a times the respondents may not be interested in answering this. So many times we have seen in questionnaires we have completely skipped the annual income part. Now you need to mention the gender, so male, female, prefer not to say. You have to put the third category at least once, either as a third gender or as prefer not to say or as I do not identify with the gender, because these are the norms which are coming up in your survey designing. Then obviously the basic requirement as to whether you're employed or unemployed, whether you are, if you're employed, what kind of employment are you in, whether it is self-employment, whether it is in business, whether you are a working professional, whether you are employed in a company, etc., and basic educational qualifications. Don't keep your demographic data too large. Demographic data should be created on the basis of which you will design the questionnaire. For example, you want to do a gender wise analysis as to how many people are using OTT platforms now, or you want to do a generation wise analysis as to whether, as I said just a few minutes back, whether the senior citizens, people above 60 years, are comfortable with e-wallets or not. So therefore, when you are considering these various areas and these topics, you have to define what are your subsequent questions going to be. So let us check at one of the templates which are here. For example, we can think of a poll template. Let's look at a poll template examples. I'm telling you again, these are freely available. You can check various types of templates from here. A political poll template can be given. Then further, if I can think of, say, a satisfaction survey. I'm going into a satisfaction survey because many people use satisfaction survey related polls. For example, customer satisfaction templates, if you see here. I'm again going down slowly because in case there is any lag in the internet, then you will be able to look into it. So we can think of business surveys, we can think of education surveys, we can think of employee satisfaction surveys, and so on. I'm going for education survey template. In education survey template, let's take a simple example of students' mental health check-in. A very popular topic which I have seen in the last few years. Check on the students' mental health well-being using a template. You can use it within your students as well as to whether post-COVID you are being able to take up the pressures and the challenges of the new age or not. So if I think of this questionnaire or this template, you see, you can think of various topics in this structure. What are they? You can consider basic points on checking in the well-being as to these points. Mental health is stronger, effects of COVID on it. If you think of effects of COVID on the students' mental health, some common questions in this area could be: number one, do you feel pressurized post COVID after joining college in an offline mode? Do you feel the pressure of the syllabus is too much? Do you have any other anxieties or issues other than the existing curriculum? Do you think peer pressure is increasing post COVID? These are so many areas which you can think of, which are going to create a very good and very interesting, and most important, a very relevant project per se in the present scenario. Let's discuss one more template over here, then I'll move on to some questionnaire examples as well. Say, for example, you move on to, let's take a feedback survey. Let's take a feedback survey, for example, because many companies go for feedback surveys. So you can go for various feedback surveys and browse your templates here. So you can think of templates of, say, for example, assessment of students or teams, managing requests, planning events. Here you can think of surveys and questionnaires which are there, various types of surveys. One common topic is here where we can think of is employee satisfaction survey or healthcare survey or performance review survey. If you think of it, let's take an employee satisfaction survey, for example. One of my students is doing a survey on IT sector employees this time, and he is doing it through a questionnaire. And this particular website, I had given him this particular website, and he was helped by the various questions which are there in this particular website. So, some questions of an employee satisfaction survey, if you have access to it, as to, for example, you can take whether your existing job is paying you well, whether the work hours are fine. uh, some points are given here, you can check this here. Whether some of the areas related to your workspace is healthy, whether you have a good cultural space, whether your employees are co-employees or colleagues are good, whether your employer is satisfactory, and of course, do you have any intention of moving ahead, going to another job, or are you scared of losing your job? These are some of the examples which are there, which you can get from these templates. Now I'm moving on with another area of questionnaire where some questionnaire examples are being going to be shared. So this again is a very popular website which is coming to Jotform, JOTFORM.com, and here you can get a very large number of examples of questionnaires. In the previous one, you can get templates, you can get an idea, an overview, whereas here you can get a large number of questionnaire templates. So, for example, let's take this particular website survey questionnaire as a preview. I hope you're being able to see this preview, because this I feel will help you instead of a bookish discussion, instead of only showing you PowerPoints. If I actually show you the source from where you can get an idea, you can check. So this is about a website, whether you have heard about a particular website. So probably if you have started your own business, the example which I was giving, one of my students is doing a project related to this. Pre-COVID, they did not have a website. So during COVID, they went online, they designed their own website, and of course there are online sales, and there was a lot of I would say investment in designing the website, and of course a lot of expectations also that people will actually buy something from their website, and their online sales will at least be somewhat measurable and somewhat quantified. So website survey, for a particular website, you can think of these questions. Have you heard of the site? How did you learn about the site? Did you purchase goods? How old are you? Under 18. I will always suggest for your questionnaire of the BCom project, please keep the age at least 18 to 25, because this will avoid any problems in future. Then gender, as I've said, these are demographical questions. These are questions where you can see how often do you visit our website? How satisfied are you? How would you like to recommend our website to friends, and so on so forth. This is one example of a website questionnaire form. Now, if I move on to the next one, this is a very, very popular template which I have seen over the last 3-4 years. Online interview questionnaire, because most of our questions are going to be based on online interviews. So if we are thinking of online interviews, these are some of the areas which you should think about. So let us begin. Obviously, the personal information, these are demographic personal information. You may skip the address part as well, because many a times people may not want to give their address, phone number, etc. They may give their email. The question and details: describe yourself in a few words. Major skills regarding to the job you have applied. What are your educational qualifications, and so on, so forth. So some examples of online interview which companies are giving. I will give you one example which I find very, very helpful, is a client questionnaire. A client questionnaire may be for a web designer, maybe for a gym health requirements, and employees' favorite questionnaires. This is one questionnaire I would like to discuss, and then we will be discussing a structure of quizzes also. So, there might be many there are many psychological based, I would say, areas which are coming up. That can be either towards behavioral finance, or they can be towards a generic understanding of psychology of your maybe friends, of your relatives, of your workers, of your co-workers, and so on and so forth. So you may get employee favorites questionnaire where the questions seem very silly, but these actually help in designing the workplace better. So when you have various questionnaire structures for various other purposes, you can actually see which one is relevant for you. So, for example, there might be a question in your survey of various employees of various companies as to whether you would prefer working from home or not. There you can give options of whether you prefer working from home at night or morning, whether you prefer working from home on 3 days, 4 days, 5 days, depending upon the various requirements. There are lots and lots of questions which are there, which may be relevant in this aspect. So, whenever you are designing a questionnaire template, you have to be careful about the questions which you are asking. I will give you another example of a questionnaire format, and then I will move on to some other examples, and then maybe some other questions and answers can be taken. Say a pre-sales questionnaire can be done. Evolution of travel for clients. Then this is a very common topic which has come up over the few years. Some buyers questionnaires have been given here. So you can go to this example, this website called JotForm, and you can think of many types of questionnaires which are there. So, for example, I'll take up this. One of my students in the previous year batches had done a similar survey, a sports club survey as to this was there in his locality, and it was a large sports club. So there were a lot of members in the sports club. So he wanted to do a survey of that specific sports club, and he wanted to find out specific questionnaires. So these are not run of the mill topics, these are somewhat different topics. So how would you find out? So the name of your club. This does not necessarily have to be a sports club. It can be a community. Many people are coming up with small communities post COVID. So you can actually think of interviewing the members of a senior citizens community in your locality. Many of you stay in societies and complexes. There are many senior citizens who are there. So they have their own WhatsApp group, their own community, their own, in Bengali we called Adda time. So you can think of projects which are looking into these areas. These are called socially oriented projects which help you in understanding the present structure, present dynamic of the overall scenario post COVID. So some questions over there may be, for example, what do you currently think about the sports club facility? Or in this case, if you have in your own complex a gym, what do you think of the gym in your complex post COVID, during COVID? So many things have happened. And I'm telling you, think out of the box when you're thinking of topics. And it's very easy to get your respondents from here. In a flat, in a complex, if you have even 20 flats, 20 flats, you have 4 members in each flat, you get 80 respondents from your interviews. So of course you will have to take certain permissions of the society and ask that if you can survey, get the questionnaire survey and everything, but it's easy to collect data. Then how often have you eaten at the sports club facility? So in your case it can be a gym which you're visiting in your complex. If you have an eatery or if you have a community center, how often have you visited that? What do you think of a food selection currently offered by the sports club, and so on so forth? There are so many innumerable questions which you can think of, and based on it you can prepare a lot of templates of surveys which are there. And again, I'm telling you, it becomes extremely difficult for your teachers to tell you exactly what the questions will be. So, when you're designing your questionnaire, thinking of a topic, thinking of an area, these are the sources which will help you in designing your own questionnaire. You do not have to look around for questions. Of course, books are there, journals are there. You can always take the questions from there, but the topics are very limited. So if you want to continue with the typical run of the mill topics and do the questionnaire based on it, it's going to be very monotonous. However, offbeat topics, interesting topics can be taken care from here. Then one of my students this year, I would like to discuss this part before I move on to the point of questionnaire designing and the difference. If you, one of my students, she is doing in BCom, but she is doing a very interesting study on the perception of beauty and how it has changed post COVID. So she was very afraid as to, ma'am, I'm from commerce, will it work? I said, you are in a CBCS curriculum where interdisciplinary questions, interdisciplinary projects are very well taken. So she designed her questionnaire. I've given her these two examples as well, jot form and type form, where she got some ideas, and based on that she prepared a questionnaire and she circulated. She's got very good responses, because during the COVID times and especially post COVID, we have become extremely addicted to social media. So there, when we are posting our pictures, there is a certain standard of beauty which is there in our mindset. So whether that is changing, whether that affects us, so her questionnaire is based on that. There is one thing you have to remember, as I said, once I finish off with the types of questionnaire, is many a times during your project you make a mistake into a survey and a questionnaire. A questionnaire can be for various data and analyzing responses to understand that. However, a survey is for a quantitative research and it only involves close ended questions. So, when you are designing your questionnaire, 99% of the times it's going to be similar to a survey rather than an open ended questionnaire. Because if you prepare an open ended questionnaire where you're allowing the participants or those who are filling up the form to describe something, your data may not be easily measurable. So when you're going to apply various tests, be it t-test, ANOVA, regression, correlation, whatever you may apply, it will become difficult for you to quote and thereby measure that result. So always try to keep your questions survey oriented and thereby close ended. And as we have seen, questionnaires are used for various forms. What are the main elements of the questionnaire? These are some of the elements which I'm going to highlight here, which you can use in your questionnaire to make it very, I would say, attractive. So simple yes, no questions or Likert scale questions. Even if you keep a Likert scale, many a time students get lost with 7-point Likert scales. Don't go for that high. 5 points. Likely, highly likely. If I begin from highly likely, likely, neutral or can't say, not likely, highly not likely, or unlikely, highly unlikely. Many a times, if you find that the data is too widely spread, you can reduce the number of the Likert scale point to 3. Likely, cannot say, unlikely, or agree, neutral, do not agree. So yes, no questions, drop down menus, tables, fill in the blanks. Fill in the blanks are not very popular in India, but text boxes where people can tick and thereby they can prepare, you can prepare your questionnaire in a more defined manner. So you can see so many templates are there in jot form, and you can think of preparing these on your own. You do not need to depend so much on books and journals where the topics are limited. You can think of any topic and you can search over here and you can get the questions. Now I'm going to one more site which I again find extremely helpful for students, which is, please note the slide, this particular website, blog.hubspot.com. So you get again free templates of questionnaires, and you can even download the free templates within a specific time. So you have to log in from email IDs, you can log in from different email IDs, and accordingly you can think of designing questionnaires based on this. So there can be micro surveys. I do not know whether you have heard of micro surveys or not, which can be done throughout the year. So if you are thinking of a topic and if you have thought of designing that topic a little ahead, you can think of doing these questionnaires on the basis of a micro survey, whereby you can do a bit of a survey before every month. You can do a survey and you can actually come up with an analysis monthly, because all I'm saying is, for your project, if you think on the topic a little early, if you think on designing the questionnaire in a very simple manner, your work is going to become easier. So thereby you can think of questions. One format is given here: less than a minute, how many times have you used the client website, what is the biggest priority right now. Different templates are given. Same thing: how many times have you visited the website, what is the primary reason for designing your website, and so on, so forth. So now that I have discussed some of these are the points which I was talking about: the Likert scale, extremely unlikely, somewhat unlikely, neutral,
Uh,
etc. How
Ma'am, I'm
satisfied
very
were you
sorry to
with the?
interrupt you.
Yes,
Ma'am, are
ma'am.
you sharing any screen with the
Ma'am, I have
students?
been sharing for the last 25
Y-
minutes,
Yes,
and I
ma'am. There
asked.
was a type form screen which was visible, but I think the jot form and this Likert scale is probably not visible to the students.
Then, ma'am, I will just go to the jot form once again, because I'll
Okay.
reshare this once,
Yes, ma'am. Just
because
if you can just reshare, the
yes,
screen.
because that was extremely helpful. I mean, I discussed some of the points. I'm resharing it once.
All right, ma'am. Ha ha.
Okay, I'll reshare, because jot form, I think, I mean, just a minute.
Ha ha ha. Okay.
Jot form. Ma'am, can you see this once? Jot form, can you just confirm?
Yes, ma'am. I'm just.
Jot form. See,
Yes, I
what
can see the
is a
jot form screen.
questionnaire? Oh,
Ha.
thank you for
Okay.
informing.
Thank you.
So I will just go through this once again. I will show you the area from where you can get these surveys and the templates from. And as I mentioned, the questionnaire and the difference of a questionnaire and a survey is given here. One or two templates I'm going to discuss. So one which I was discussing in the end was the mental health of students and COVID-19 questionnaires and similar questionnaires for employees. So I will first talk about the educational survey, um, where sports club. I'm going to the preview. Ma'am, can you again confirm if you can see the preview of the sports club? Sports club survey form.
Yes, ma'am. I can see the sports club survey form.
Okay,
Yes.
thank you so
Yes.
much. So
Huh.
here in a sports club survey form, as I had explained right now, it is not necessary that you need to do it only for a sports club. As I was mentioning, you can talk about the community, you can talk about various clubs which are there, you may talk about various clubs that you are a part of in your college, because I know your college has a vibrant club and social activity structure where a lot of clubs are there. So you can talk about that, you can do a survey on it, you can do a project on it. I will give you another example. I will just close this once. Say for example, one of the templates which I had discussed right now, and I'll discuss one more then maybe, COVID-19 questionnaire. So the preview is coming. Maybe my internet is slightly slow. I will just check. It will come in a while. So in COVID-19, pre and post test related data, you can get a lot of examples. Here also it's given. See, if your non-profit organization is offering any assistance, if you are trying to get some data from NGO, many of my students are working on projects where they are interviewing NGOs and trying to find out how the NGOs have worked during COVID. So you can get a lot of data from there, and accordingly, you can find out the various structures of questionnaires from there. Now, I will close this preview. I will tell you the website once again, if you can see. And anyways, I will be mentioning this in the Word document that I sent all of you. Jotform.com. Free templates are given here. So as I said, you do not have to really wait for your professor or teacher in order to come up with different kinds of questionnaires. Now I'm going to share one more, which is the Likert scale questionnaire, which I was talking about, which is 28 questionnaires. Just give me a minute. This is the one, 28 questionnaires. uh, Here again you can get free templates, and when I was talking about the Likert scale, I was talking about this. For example, how likely are you to recommend us? You may do a survey for a website, you may do a survey for a company. So normally the various scales which are used are Likert scales, either in a 3-point or on a 5-point basis. 5 points are most common, but many surveys we have seen are using the long form of 10 points as well. But then if you are designing one question on 5-point, I will suggest you design the remaining on 5-point as well. So while this screen is on, I'm going to try and wrap up the entire structure of questionnaires, that if you are thinking of designing a questionnaire and your project work is related with primary survey, keep your questions limited to maximum 25. So 5 will be your demographic questions, and the other 20 will be questions related to your area. Most of the times people get exhausted by answering 15 questions. So if you can design your questionnaire very specifically and can get enough respondents, at least 100 and above, then your project can be very, very well prepared. And there are, just a minute, excuse me. So when you come across different other kinds of questions, think of questions which are answerable. Think of a practical way of designing your questionnaire. So while the last 5 minutes are on, I'm going to say the next step after preparing your questionnaire for the project is your analysis. The analysis has to be obviously based on your objectives, your research methodology, and the analysis of your data. So research objectives will obviously be based on the research gap, what you have seen in your literature review and what area you want to work on. So research objectives, keep them simple. To understand the impact of COVID on OTT platforms or on e-wallets, or to understand the impact of COVID on your business or on your community or on the sports center or in the college club, and so on and so forth. Research methodology. Clearly design the research methodology as to whether it is based on primary data or on secondary data. If it is primary data, what is the questionnaire? Because you need to give the annexure of your questionnaire as a part of the project. If it is secondary data, then which are the websites from where you're taking the data? Then, of course, your analysis. The more tests, statistical tests you include, simple tests. We are not asking you to do an exploratory factor analysis or a Granger causality test. You can do simple tests like a correlation, a regression, a t-test, a chi-square test. You don't even need SPSS for it. You can do them in Excel also. And if your college or has the access to SPSS, or you have the access for free trial versions, you can do that and you can get your overall data analyzed. Keep your conclusion very crisp. Only the highlights of your analysis should be mentioned in the conclusion. Limitations of the research will always be there, but more than limitations, you can use the term scope for further research. It's a positive term. So your data can be larger, your area can be larger, you can design a longer time period, you can design more questions. So these are commonly available in various journals from where you are going to do your literature review. So based on the overall structure, I'm going to stop the sharing now, and I'm going to go back to the main screen. And if there are questions, I will start taking them now. So 5 minutes of questions, if any question. And as I had already mentioned, whatever points we have discussed today, I will compile them in a Word document as to types of research, the different areas and different topics, and of course the website linkages. And I'll prepare that and I'll send it to ma'am by this Friday, if that works.
Ma'am, that will be great. Ma'am, I think Ayushi is going to be handling the questions. So, Ayushi, you can
Yes.
unmute and ask the questions that are there. Ma'am, till Ayushi unmutes herself, ma'am, just a quick overview. Can you give them like what are the main things they'll cover in the project? Especially, they have a very small, ma'am. They have nearly 2 months to work on the project. So,
So the first
how many
point I would
objectives?
say,
Huh. How
how
many
many
objectives
objectives?
objectives
Ma'am,
would be
I think the first point is, if you consider the structure, they will consider the introduction, then the
Hmm.
literature review, then the research gap, then their
Okay.
objective. In objective, I will say two objectives are enough. One can be, what is the generic understanding, which will be the theoretical aspect of it. For example, let's say you are doing a survey on OTT platforms. So what is the concept growth of OTT platforms in India over the last few years? And then your objective two will be to analyze the increase or change in the usage of OTT platforms over the, say, the last 5 years. So when you are designing the first analysis, then you should at least have the theoretical background. And in the second analysis will be related to your second objective, which will
Hmm.
be a structure. So ma'am, will it be helpful if I design a pattern for a particular example and send it to you
Absolutely,
along
absolutely,
with
ma'am. We'll share it with the students.
right?
Huh. And
So
ma'am,
ma'am,
one more
I,
thing
I
you
i do
get
that
stuck
exactly.
is probably what kind of study. Many of them can't do a causal study, or mostly very few descriptive ones. Mostly it's exploratory. So
Right.
if they do an exploratory, you're saying the first objective can be the conceptual analysis,
Yes. Yes.
okay, and the second could be a particular aspect, maybe a trend or something like that,
Yes.
depending on the
Yes.
kind of nature of topic. Okay.
Yes. So, ma'am, what I'll do is, I will first, when I send the Word document, I will be first covering the main parts of the project. And I think I had even sent you that in our previous workshop, but then I will change
Okay.
that a little and I will prepare that. And I will
All right.
give you a template of this entire survey along with certain questionnaires on any topic, on any one topic which is very popular. So that way they will get an idea as to how to design that.
Okay, that'll be great. That'll be great.
So, ma'am, I will send it to you latest by Saturday. In the email
Sure.
from where I have received the invitation, I'll send it to that email ID itself, ma'am.
Absolutely, absolutely. Same.
Okay. So,
Ayushi,
I would like,
any
I
more
don't think there
questions?
are any questions.
Um, and okay, ma'am, there's one question. What could be some sources for secondary data?
Secondary data, World Bank, RBI, NSC, BSC, many sources are there. I will mention that and in the Word document in which I'm sending. And
All right.
always prefer authentic sources, like for mutual funds, AMFI, Value Research; for banking, RBI, World Bank; for industry, SIDBI, IDBI; and of course for companies, directly to the company, or maybe Money Control is considered as a very good source of data nowadays, quite authentic. So you can go to Money Control, you can go to Bloomberg if you have access, and so on and so forth. I will give you a set of those websites as well.
And, ma'am, this is one. This is a little. It's a good question. It says what not to select as a topic for a project.
What not to, something where data collection is difficult. For example, you really want to do a survey in the rural area, but then with 2 3 months of time in hand, it's not possible for you to go there. You want to suddenly decide working on an area of aviation industry. If you do not have people working in the aviation industry that you do not know, you cannot get the data. You want to do a topic specifically on senior citizens. Google Forms are not comfortable for them. So you will have to go and do a personal interview. So you need to have that time. Or you want to work on generic topics like, say, doing a survey on, say, a very good topic for gender studies on transgender or the other gender, but getting data is very difficult. So thereby, wherever you think getting data, either primary or secondary, is difficult, do not choose that topic. You may
Yeah.
choose it for your MPhil, for your master's dissertation, but for your undergraduate, make it simple. And a very relevant question, can we work on both? Yes, most of the projects are both on primary and secondary data, especially the projects which are finance related. For example, NPA analysis can be done on secondary data, and after that, you can do a survey of various people who are working in banks as to how has this affected. Or even e-wallets, you can do an analysis of these various of the balance sheets of these various platforms which are there on the website, and you can consider the awareness of the people post COVID, pre COVID, during COVID, as the concern may be. So most of the research which is finance oriented is based both on primary and secondary data. Ideally, it can be a very good way if you can collect that. So, ma'am, I wish I had more time, but then what is the difference between area and topic? Area and topic is basically, area is a larger area, say mutual funds, and the topic is what is the importance or development of mutual funds, what is the change in mutual fund performance over the last 5 years, what is the change in ETFs, whether they have grown. This is topic. There was another question which I could not read. Can you just Kavita ma'am, can you just, yes,
Uh-huh.
if even if the data is available, if you can just uh, which is not possibly appreciated or not suggested, uh, well, that will depend upon, it's very difficult to say that. If I would say, if it is too generic, it may not be appreciated. Too generic in the sense, you simply roll out a Google form and you find out what is the preference of Netflix amongst different age. I don't think that would be appreciated. You need to be a bit more specific. Maybe you can do a pre post COVID analysis of whether the middle aged people like us, 35 to 45, have increased their use of Netflix and Amazon Prime and OTT platforms. Or maybe the teenagers, or maybe you, 18 and above, they have increased. So a little bit more specific will be appreciated. Too generic topics are not appreciated. How many literature review? I would say for 100 marks project, a minimum of 10. A minimum of 10, because otherwise you will not be able to realize what is the gap. Because if you do the topic, if you work on something which is already there, there is no point. Impact of GST and hotel, very good topic, very good topic. One of my students had done an impact of GST on real estate. He had a business of real estate, so he had actually done this. This is a very good topic, especially on hotel and travel, because post COVID this is improved. This is a very good topic. Then can we take research papers? Yes, of course you can. That is your secondary data. Your literature review will be from the research papers. You will have to do your literature review from research papers. I will, if ma'am allows and wants, and I can send the websites from where you can download those research papers for free also. I will send those links as well, ma'am, because the questions cannot be answered by the teachers. They need the access. That is why I showed them from where they can design the questionnaire. I will give the links of areas from where they can design, discuss some topics as well. So, ma'am, with this, I think I will end my session today. I wish I had more time. I had two, three
Absolutely,
other
ma'am.
PowerPoints prepared, but then since I could not discuss them, I will send them over to
Ma'am, because ma'am, project work is something, there's no end to it. The
you.
discussion can
Exactly,
go
ma'am.
on forever. So thank you so much, Dr. Ghosh. I'll request Sharmila Banerjee to deliver the vote of thanks. Uh, Sharmila, are you here?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, go ahead.
Uh, I would like to express my sincere gratitude to Dr. Soheli Ghosh, who spared precious time from her busy schedule to grace this session and enlighten all of us with innovative ideas on how to go forward with the project work. Thank you so much, ma'am. This was indeed a very fruitful and knowledgeable session. I would further like to extend the hearty thanks to our principal, ma'am, Dr. Aditi Dey, for allowing us to conduct this session. Further, I would like to thank the entire faculty of BCom Evening Department for their constant support and guidance. I would also like to thank all the students for attending this session with patience and enthusiasm. Last but not the least, I would like to thank my fellow moderators for running this session smoothly and making it a success. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, and I would also like to thank Shri Shikshayatan College for giving me this opportunity. Again, as I said, I wish I had more time so I could discuss a lot of other PowerPoints and templates, but then I'll send them all over to ma'am latest by Saturday.
Thank you
Okay,
so much,
thank you
ma'am.
so
Thank you.
much. So,
Thank you,
ma'am, I'm
ma'am.
leaving the show.
Absolutely. We'll end the live
Thank,
stream.
thank you so
Thank you.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you.